seeing things through the false doctrine, which is still like you say. You see something, but you're not seeing it real clearly, right? And then that leads you, right? You're led by what you see in the morning. Like if I wake up in the morning and I see the grass is like really high, my sight tells me, let's go cut that grass. Do you see what I'm saying? And so that's the same way it is with Jesus as you live in this world and you behold the faith of the Son of God. You behold what it means that his life overcame the death in the world. You behold what it means that there's a human being seated at his right hand. You behold what it means that God reconciled all things back unto Christ. You behold that, and that starts shaping what you see. And then you're walking around doing by what you see. It's like if you go grocery shopping and you're looking at the fruit. The fruit you get is led by what? What you see.
Right.
If you see that this fruit looks like it's rotting away a little bit, you don't go get that fruit. Right? Do you see what I'm saying there? Mm-hmm. You don't have to stop and think about that. No one has to tell you externally that. Your sight. It's like an organic thing that happens on the inside of you. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. Your thoughts are just shaped by what you see. And so that's what it means to walk by faith. Your thoughts, the way you interpret life, the filter by which you're viewing your life and what you see in your life and what you see in the world around you is the faith that came in the person of Jesus. And that's what Paul's talking about when he says, yeah, I was crucified with Christ, but I'm still alive here.
Yeah.
And so what that means is, I'm still living in this world, but the life I live now in this world, I live by beholding what God has done in Christ. I live by beholding the death and resurrection of Christ. I live by beholding what it means that I was crucified with Christ to the world and the world to me, and I was raised up with Christ unto the life of God. Mm-hmm. Right? I live by beholding that. I live by seeing that every day, and that tells me things about my life. That tells me things about what I see, right? It shapes my thoughts about what I see. It shapes my thoughts about my life. It shapes my thoughts about other people. It shapes my thoughts about what things mean and what they don't mean, right? Like in the next couple weeks, I'm going to preach a message about salvation from hurt feelings, right? Because I realize I used to get my feelings hurt a lot. I never voiced it out loud to people, but inside, I was just all the time feeling negative. And it occurred to me the other day, and I talk a lot about this one-on-one with people, man, my feelings don't really get hurt anymore. And I realized God did something in me. And I realized the way that it happened was that he shaped my thoughts. And the way he shaped my thoughts was that as I lived in this world, I lived by beholding the faith that was made flesh in Jesus. And as I kept beholding this faith that was made flesh in Jesus, it began to shape my thoughts about my interaction with people. Right? Like it came and gave me eyes to see my interaction with people in a completely different way. It gave me eyes to see where the hurt feelings could come from. Right? It completely revolutionized the way I thought and what I thought was going on should I find myself in the place where I had hurt feelings. Right. Like the way I thought about it completely changed. And ironically, what I find is the way that I think about it now has resulted in me being delivered from having my feelings hurt anymore. Right?
Yeah.
And all that happened was I live my life in this world by beholding Jesus. And as I walk in this world beholding Jesus, it's come and caused me to see this dynamic differently. I just see it differently now. Right. He didn't come and tell me, do this instead. He came and gave me a different pair of eyes by which to view this thing with. And now the way I was looking at it prompted me to think there's a different way, right? Like I saw, and then it led me to do something else because I saw it differently, right? And what happened was, man, not only did it lend itself to good relationships with people, because guys, I don't know if you realize, but people don't want to hurt your feelings. They just don't. And so, not only would it save your relationships, but what I found specifically for myself was that the majority of my hurt feelings came from judgments I had made in my life along the way. And so my hurt feelings were more a word about things I had judged instead of things they had actually done, right? It's not to say that what they said wasn't maybe, I don't even want to say it that way. thoughtless. And when we say thoughtless, we mean not considering whatever judgments we might have made in our lives. Well, how can they consider all the judgments we might have made in our lives?
That's right.
How can they consider all the things we might think about what this is and what this means?
We can't even do it for ourselves.
Right? And so even though what they've said and done we might conclude is thoughtless, right? Even though we conclude that the foundation isn't that it's what they've said and done. It's the judgments we've made in our hearts. And so God gave me eyes to see it differently. And so not only did it restore things in my relationships with people, but what started coming and happening, because I didn't lay my negative emotions at their feet, which is what we do when we have hurt feelings. We take our hurt feelings and we lay it at the feet of the people we say hurt our feelings. Right? Now, once we do that, we scapegoated them. We blame them for our hurt feelings, right? We're attributing our hurt feelings to them. That's reinforcing whatever judgments we've made in our heart that are actually the cause of the hurt feelings. I don't know if you guys realize that no one can hurt your feelings apart from it triggering some judgment you have in your heart. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, there's a difference between acknowledging something isn't born from life and having your feelings hurt. Right? Like something could happen inside of a relationship that isn't born from life, and you can be grieved that you don't see life there. But that's very different than my feelings are hurt by them. Right? So I can be in a dynamic where what's happened there in a relationship isn't born from life, and it can be death, and I can be grieved that I don't see life there and I see death, but that doesn't now mean I have to take it as a personal affront from the other person. You see, we need to separate those kinds of things. We need to separate those kinds of a thing. And so what's happened is when I stopped scapegoating other people for the hurt that I felt, I began talking with God about the hurt that I felt. And I'm describing the deep interactions in the heart of a human, just so you know. The dynamic that happened when I stopped scapegoating people and I started talking with God about my hurt feelings, it was like me opening up my heart and saying, "Here, Daddy." Right? If I could just put language to it. It was like I was making myself vulnerable to Him. Right? And I didn't know exactly what was happening. The way it actually looked was I would just be like, "Lord, what's going on in me that this is hurting my feelings? What's going on in me that I feel so, used or abused or neglected," or all those things, because that's what we started thinking. Well, when you scapegoat other people, you're not talking to God about what it is that's causing you to feel this, because you've already decided what's causing you to feel it. It's them. You know what I'm saying? And now your focus is on them. And we all know what we think of them in those moments, right? We might walk down the road with some few choice phrases about them, right? But what happened was when I stopped, when he didn't say, "Greg, don't do that." I started filtering what I saw by the faith that was made flesh in Jesus. And it caused me to see it differently. And when I saw it differently, that resulted in me, "Father, what's going on in me that I feel used and abused?" Instead of laying it at their feet. Then this supernatural dynamic happened where these judgments that I had made through the course of my life that were always serving me with pain, they started getting plucked out. Right? They started getting plucked out. And just to use a tangible example, because most of you that have been in the church or listen to me know what I'm talking about here. But like the intensity thing, right? I've come to realize whether you're intense or not intense is neither good or evil. It's neither good or evil. But I was persuaded at a very early age that my intensity was evil. And it was something that needed to be curbed. So I took that judgment into my heart. That it's evil to be intense. It's too much. It's not nice for people. They don't like it. It's bad, bad, bad. You're a bad. I took that judgment into my heart, right?
Yep.
So in the day, I'm interacting with somebody, anyone, even should they not even have a negative connotation in their voice, because other people also have that judgment, that intensity is no good. I mean, the teacher who told me that had that judgment.
Sure.
She was living by the knowledge of good and evil. But even when people who weren't saying it in a negative way just told me that I was intense, man, it was like, what? It was like they were smacking me in the face. And it was like my feelings would be hurt. And I would walk away thinking, what's wrong with them? Thinking about all that kind of a thing. Or you see how I was scapegoating them for the negative emotion.
You were prepared to hear it before you heard it.
That's right.
Yes,
That's
very
right.
good.
That's right. Right? And so even if it, and some people did say it in a negative way, right? But even should they say it in a negative way, the only way it can hurt your feelings is if you've also judged it to be negative.
Right.
Because if you haven't judged it to be negative, and you're not living by that judgment or the judgment in the world, it won't hurt your feelings, even should they think you're too intense and it's too bad and it's bad. Mm-hmm. You know what you'll say? Well, let me point you to someone who's less intense. Mm-hmm. Glory to God. Right? There's a lot of human beings in the earth. I got friends that talk very slow and that sit there very calmly, and I'll point you to them. Right? And then you're not busy looking at it the wrong way.
Right.
Right? Do you see that dynamic? And so what God come and did was he gave me eyes to see what was happening there differently. He came and said, what's that song? There's a song that came out, lend me your eyes and I'll change what you see. That's basically what God told me back in the beginning. I didn't realize he was talking about walking by faith and not by sight. Right? He basically said that lend me your eyes and I'll change what you see. And he has. And I don't just mean change what I see about things like penal substitution and forsaken or not or sin. I mean, he's changed my sight about everything in my life. And so when I stopped, I used to go home from church and think, what's wrong with those people telling me I'm too intense? What's wrong with those people complaining about how much I move my arms, move around? Don't they know? Don't they see I'm just, the only reason why I'm even doing this is so that they can have life from God? That was your thoughts. What do you think that leaves you feeling about those people? It ain't love. It ain't love you're busy feeling. You're busy feeling like they're the thorn. We got to pluck out the splinter somehow. Right? If you're busy thinking if those people could just get themselves straight, then we might have something here. Right? Well, all the while what that was doing was I was busy building a little fort in my heart. Building walls around my judgments that hadn't come from God. Reinforcing the lies. Reinforcing the hurt feelings. And then all of a sudden I saw it differently one day. And I stopped. And I just, Father, what's going on in me that it even bothers me should a person come and say that I'm intense?
Yeah.
Why? You see, now the conversation changed. And I started talking with him about it, and all my thoughts were no longer, what's wrong with these people, All my thoughts began talking with God about, why does this hurt me? Mm-hmm. What do I think it's taking from me? And through that course, man, he's plucked out the judgment, right?
You hear the song